Thank you.
Okay,
It's on.
let's go a little bit behind Kosai, and then maybe a little bit of Shavuos as well. So I found something very interesting in the Osher Palos HaTorah. It says that the minhag was, when they sold the chametz on Pesach, in the document they wrote, and we're also selling all our illnesses, all sickness. Why? Because it says that Kol Macha Shesamti B'Mitzrayim Lo Osim Malecha. So the whole Pesach was a protection against illness. So when they sold the chametz, they sold all the illness. Of course, when they bought back the chametz,
They brought back
no, they just bought back the chametz. They made sure to say, okay, some of it you can keep, some of it we want back.
You have to put it in 10 pieces. When you burn it, write down the promise.
Yeah, so there's different minhagim, very unusual minhagim. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, I mentioned also to you something very, very interesting that I mentioned to you about Shavuos. It says that at Har Sinai, when Hashem gave the Torah, all illnesses were healed.
Yeah.
If someone couldn't hear, they could hear. If they couldn't see, they could see. If they were missing an arm or a leg, they got their arm or leg back. So they say when Shavuos comes, it's a time to daven for people who are sick. Because the same way Hashem cured all illnesses on Shavuot, Hashem will cure them in every year. It's a zman. We say it's a time misugal, that is fortunate or lucky to have this done. If it was done once, that's the time to do it. You know, it's not about your chamor, your dog, whatever it is. It's just daven for illnesses that they should be cured. Okay. The other thing is a very common thing that is often said is as follows. It says in this week's parsha, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe b'Har Sinai." So there's a famous Rashi. Rashi says, why does it say b'Har Sinai? That just like Shemitah, all the details were given at Har Sinai, every mitzvah, all the details were given at Har Sinai. So all the details of Shabbos, of Yontav, of kosher, of shatnez, of kibbutz av v'aim, were all given at Har Sinai. The Jews stayed at Har Sinai for a few years, a year or two, and they learned everything, all the Gemara and the Mishnah and Halacha in great detail. Of course, it begs the question, if I have to pick one mitzvah to write down to tell me that just like this mitzvah, all mitzvahs, why Shemitah? Why not Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe b'Har Sinai and tell me kosher, tell me Shabbos, tell me Chagim? Why was it Shemitah? Why was that the mitzvah that Hashem decided to say in great detail at Har Sinai? The answer that they give is, so then, and it's a common sense answer. If you were writing the Torah, if the Torah was not from Hashem, if you were writing the Torah, the last thing you're going to write in the Torah is something that they could test you on and prove you wrong. Moshe writes in the Torah that in case you want to know what am I going to eat in year 7, in year 8, I'm going to send my bracha, and in year 6 you're going to have enough food for 3 years. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. Because once Shemitah comes, all the Jews are going to wait till year 6, and they're going to watch. Will there be a bracha for 3 years, or no bracha for 3 years? Okay? You never put in a Torah something that everybody can prove you wrong by just the facts. Look, there's no food and we're in year 7. The Torah is fake. So the fact that Moshe chose Shemitah as the test, as the halacha to tell me in great detail in the Torah, and makes those promises, tells you that he believed the Torah was min hashamayim and the Torah came from Hashem. Otherwise, he could lose everything. Now, what's interesting is, what kind of a person would say in year 6, what are we going to eat? Mm-hmm. The believer or the non-believer?
Non-believer.
The non-believer, right? The believer is not worried. He's home and he's doing what he has to do. The person who is going to complain and say, what are we going to eat? We're not planting, we're not going to have enough food, is the non-believer. But Shemitah is so powerful that even if you don't believe, if you keep Shemitah, Hashem will protect you. That means even if you question, what are we going to eat? And I'm nervous, and I'm scared, and I'm worried. But if you keep Shemitah, even though you don't have the emunah you're supposed to have, the Shemitah will protect you. The bracha will come. Now it's interesting that they talk about today, when there's Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael, how do the farmers survive? Well, some sell it to a goy, and that's a big machloket if you can do sale or not sale. It's a big machloket that there's mechira of the land.
That's loophole.
It's a loophole, but it's not universally accepted. The Chazon Ish never accepted it. Rav Kook did, or Chazon Ish did not. But they collect money. They collect money in America called Keret Hashviz. And they give the farmers money to offset their losses. And the government money to bring in food from outside, from Chutz La'aretz. So you raise the question, but that's not how Shemitah is supposed to work. If someone comes to you and says, we're collecting money for Shemitah in Israel, you know what your answer should be? What do you want from me? Hashem promised you a bracha for 3 years. Leave me alone. They should be giving me money. I shouldn't be giving them money. So the answer is that bracha doesn't exist today because we're in Galut. The fact that we went back to Israel and we're settling in Israel doesn't change the fact that we're still in Galut. There is no Yovel. Shemitah is only midrabanan. So those brachot that we have, that the Torah promises, really does not exist today. So that's why they have to go out and collect. It's unusual. Okay? Those brachot just don't exist. It's just very, very strange. There's an article here, that was titled "The Palestinians Are Right." It's a little bit of a catchy title, but it's what's the argument? The Palestinians argue that Israel does not belong to the Jews. Doesn't belong to the Jews. What do the Jews say? What are you talking about? Who were the first Jews to get to Israel? It was Yehoshua. And then you had all the Shoftim, and you had David HaMelech and Shlomo. There were no Palestinians then, there were no Arabs then, there were no Muslims then. They didn't even exist. Yerushalayim was the capital of Israel 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. The Romans destroyed it. The whole world knew Yerushalayim belonged to the Jews. So how could you say, no, Israel does not belong to the Jews? But the Seforno, he says that, not that in this way, but, if you think about it, the Palestinians are right. Why? Because all the land belongs to people, the heavens belong to Hashem. But there is one country that Hashem never gave to anybody. What country is that? Eretz Yisrael. Hashem only let you live there if you kept Torah and mitzvahs. If you don't keep Torah and mitzvahs, what does Hashem do? He says goodbye, throws you out. So, believe it or not, when we talk about Eretz Yisrael, who is the owner of the land of Israel? Hashem. So Hashem let the Jews stay there, but then Hashem threw the Jews out. The Jews came back, of course, but now, even in Israel today, with all the religious Jews that are there, there's still plenty of non-religious Jews. And you look at a city like Tel Aviv or Haifa, you wouldn't know you were in Israel. You could be in France or in England or in New York. It's the same thing. So, it's, if you believe that the land of Israel belongs to Hashem, and Hashem only lets Jews stay there when the Jews keep Torah and mitzvos, but if we don't keep Torah and mitzvos, it doesn't belong to us. So, in theory, it comes out that it's possible that the land does not belong to us. I mean, that's something that we have to keep in consideration a little bit, in some fashion or the other. What was the purpose of Shemitah? For an entire year, most people were farmers in those days. There wasn't industry in those days. People didn't plant. People didn't sow. What grew on its own, you could eat, and afterwards it went into the public, and you survived. Somehow you survived. What was the purpose of the Shemitah year?
Shabbat.
It was a Shabbat for the land.
Yeah.
But it was really one big Shabbat for you. What did you do? You no longer worked.
Nothing, yeah. You relax.
Well, you didn't just go to Cancun, you learned Torah.
Yeah.
You went to the local kollel, and you spent the year learning Torah, which, by the way, was a hard thing. Because, today, you go into a yeshiva, you look all around the walls, what's their bookcases?
Books,
You have all the books.
yeah.
So you have all the Mishnah, all the Gemara, all the Rishonim, all the Achronim, and you can sit and learn. 3,000 years ago, there were no books.
Yeah. One book
Nothing.
would be-
Nothing. They didn't even have a siddur printed.
Yeah,
So everything was Baal Peh,
yeah.
and you had to have a teacher. Because if you didn't have a teacher teaching you, so you walked into the Beis Medrash, and you were the only one there in the Beis Medrash. Today, you walk in the Beis Medrash, you go to the shelf, pull off a book, and you can read it in 10 different languages. Back then, if you went to the Beis Medrash and there was no one there, what did you do?
Why waiting for Rabbi?
Waiting for the rabbi. You looked at the four walls.
Yeah.
So they had to have people who knew everything go all over Israel and create all these kohanim. And that was Shevet Shimon a little bit, and the Levi, and the Kohanim. But the purpose of the Shemitah every 7 years was an opportunity to try to learn as much of Torah and mitzvahs. So it was a refresher course. People didn't know. People come all the time and ask questions, and you go and you look, how to do this, how to not do it. Can you use a timer on Shabbos, not use a timer? You have tshuvas. You can look in the Shmir Shabbos, Kil Chasa. You have a lot of good books out there. But in those days, you didn't have those books. You had a Rebbe. And it was important to have a Rebbe, because if you didn't have a Rebbe, you couldn't learn at all. So you needed to have a Rebbe. And when your Rebbe died, you found a different Rebbe. And eventually you tried to get as much Torah knowledge as possible, but it was all by mouth. It was not very easy. And there were no notes. You didn't come with a tape recorder or a notebook. There was none of that, or a computer to type things. So you have to understand that it was very, very,
Difficult.
very, very difficult. Okay.
Because one of the things was destroyed even that because of the Shemitah. A lot of people don't pick the Shemitah.
Well, the problem was that a lot of people did not keep the Shemitah, and that's why the Galut Bavel happened for those 70 years, to keep all those Shemitahs that they didn't keep. Yeah, Shemitah was a very big challenge. The Shemitah B'Yov was a very big challenge. Okay, in this week's Parsha, we have the Psukim that they discuss the Gemara and Bava Metzia. What's the Gemara and Bava Metzia? Two people are on the road. They're going into the desert. Two people are in the desert. And they're thirsty. Okay? One of them has a nice big bottle of water. Poland Spring. Not a small bottle,
Big.
a big bottle of Poland Spring. The other guy, how much water does he have?
No.
Nothing. So the other guy says, can I have a drink of water? The first guy says, I gotta be honest with you.
Can't give it.
If I share my water with you, we're both gonna die. If I don't give you any water, and I keep it all for me,
I'll be all right.
I'll be all right, I'll live, but you'll die. Sorry to give you the bad news. So what is the halacha? What does the Gemara say? What is the halacha? So like every halacha, it's a machloket. The first opinion is Ben Petura. What does Ben Petura say? How can you watch your friend die? What kind of a friend would you be? So what do? You share your water, and then you both die.
Yes.
Is that like committing suicide?
Yes.
You say yes. That's what Ben Petura says. And everybody accepted Ben Petura. Achabo Rabbi Akiva.
Rabbi Akiva says.
And Rabbi Akiva, who believes v'yahavta l'recha chamocha and everything else, he says there's a pasuk in this week's parsha v'chai bohem. The Torah is about survival, about living, and therefore your goal is to live. And if you share, you're going to die. So therefore, say to your friend, I'm really sorry you're going through this. I wish you all the success in the world, good luck, and you don't share the water. What does the Rambam say? Nothing. The Rambam doesn't discuss it. What does the Shulchan Aruch say? Nothing. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't discuss it. What do the Achronim say? Who do we paskin like? Who do we think they go by? Ben Petur or Rabbi Akiva?
Rabbi Akiva.
The answer is Rabbi Akiva.
Strong.
Okay, Rabbi Akiva.
Anybody machloket?
You go like Rabbi Akiva. Now, what was Ben Petur thinking? You think Ben Petur wanted two people to die?
No.
So what was he thinking?
Of the respect to each other, that's what I'm talking
So
about.
they say that Ben Petur had a little bit of a different thought. He says, listen, I have a big jug of water. That water, if I drink it, I can go 4 days. If we share it, we'll each go 2 days. But we won't get out of the desert in 2 days, so we're going to die. Ben Petur's thinking is, but we're not going to die right now.
Yeah.
We're going to die in 2 days. In 2 days, Mashiach can come.
Yeah.
A helicopter can come. Someone can save us. I don't know what's going to be in 2 days. We're walking through the desert.
Maybe a miracle, something
A
happens.
miracle can happen. Well, maybe we'll find water.
It's
Maybe
not supposed
there'll
to
be a
rely on
well.
miracles.
What?
That's supposed to rely on miracles.
You don't rely on miracles, but he says to give him nothing is a death sentence.
Yeah.
That means if you believe, if you have some emunah
To Hashem.
to Hashem, share the water. And say, I don't know what's going to be in 2 days from now. Today is Monday. Do you know what's going to be on Wednesday? I don't know what's going to be on Wednesday. I have a schedule.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to be here and there, but I don't know what's going to happen on Wednesday. Between now and Wednesday, 10 things can happen. So Ben Petur's argument is, if you are a believer, and if you believe everything that's going to happen is for the best, and if you believe that a person only dies in the right time, share the water and put your faith in Hashem. Rabbi Akiva says very different. Rabbi Akiva says, "V'chai b'hem," you have to live. You have to fight for survival. Now, what happens if I have 2 big jugs of water, and I only need 1, so I have an extra,
Yeah, you have to give.
and there's 2 people? Now what do?
So,
Problem.
So they bring it down. What happens if you're 60 years old and you're 30 years old? Who should I give it to?
30 years.
30-year-old. What happens if you're a woman and he's a man?
Man.
Man, because he has more mitzvahs. What happens if you're a Kohen and he's only a Levi?
Koi.
Kohen might get it. So, in a strange way, it's not so
Difficult.
simple.
Yeah, it's not
It's not so simple. That means if I only have 1, I got you. But if I have an extra 1,
That's a problem too.
they have exercises like this. If there's a nuclear holocaust and you have a bunker and there's only room for 5 people and there's 10 people who want to get in, how do you choose the 5 people?
Who is younger?
Who's younger, maybe a woman so they can have children, maybe someone who's a doctor, in case someone gets sick. How do you decide?
Best one.
Right?
Pick up best one.
Right. How do you decide who the 5 people are? It's an exercise that some places put you through. Okay. There was a person who passed away recently, the last month or so, Rav Zachariah Geli. He was the rabbi in Washington Heights. Okay, Washington Heights. What's in Washington Heights?
This is
You know where Washington Heights is?
Yes.
Where is Washington Heights?
by, close to Bronx.
It's in Manhattan,
Yeah.
upper Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's near the George Washington Bridge. Which big yeshiva is there in Washington Heights?
MTG?
No, MTJ is in lower Manhattan.
No.
Yeshiva University.
Oh, yeah.
Rabbi Yitzchak Elchon, YU. So YU is in Washington Heights. And in Washington Heights is a German community called the Yekisha community, known as Breuers. They have a very good hechsher, they have Rabbonim. Rabbi Schwab was the rabbi. Rabbi Breuer was for many years, then Rabbi Schwab took over. And after Rabbi Schwab came Rabbi Geli.
Oh, he,
And Rabbi Geli just passed away. He had Parkinson's disease. He was sick for a while. But he was a very big Talmud Chacham and a highly respected person. He lived in Washington Heights.
oh, no.
What?
Oh.
I'm sure he was in his 70s, maybe even in his 80s. I don't remember. But he just passed away, probably in the last 30 days. My brother-in-law tells a story that he once drove Rabbi Geli from Queens to Brooklyn, and from the highway in the Bell Parkway, you could see the Verrazano Bridge.
Yes.
And he didn't know if Rabbi Geli even ever saw the Verrazano Bridge, or especially at night, it looks very pretty. So he said to Rabbi Geli, you see, there's the Verrazano Bridge. He says, oh, the Verrazano Bridge, yeah, that connects Borough Park and Lakewood. See, a normal person would have said it connects Brooklyn to Staten Island.
Yeah.
But Rabbi Geli, he didn't see the world Brooklyn to Staten Island. Hashem wouldn't create a bridge for Brooklyn to Staten Island. Hashem created the bridge to connect Borough Park to Lakewood, The Gedolim, they don't see the world the way you and I see the world, as practical as Brooklyn to Staten Island. No, it's Borough Park to Lakewood. That was Rabbi Geli. So they bring down a story, talking about Rabbi Akiva and his students and respect, that when Rabbi Schwab retired, so they appointed Rabbi Geli to be the rabbi. Now, in Washington Heights, in the shul, if this is where the Aron Kodesh is, the rabbi sits on the right side. That's where the rabbi sits. So Rabbi Schwab retired. So they told Rabbi Geli, next Shabbos you have to sit in this chair. You're the rabbi, you're taking over. And they're very strict about their rules. Rabbi Geli said, no, there's no way. Rabbi Schwab retired, but he's alive. I'm not going to tell Rabbi Schwab, you have to move your seat over here, and I'm going to take over here. I'm not going to
Disrespect it.
I'm going to not disrespect Rabbi Schwab. He may be retired, and I may be the rabbi, but he's still an older man. I'm going to stay in my seat over here, and I'm not going to change. Okay, they respected that. Then Rabbi Schwab eventually passed away. So when Rabbi Schwab passed away, they came to Rabbi Geli, and they started picking up his chair, and they're going to move it to this side. Because that was the deal, right? Rabbi Schwab passed away. Now you have no excuses. So Rabbi Geli says, no way. No, you can't move it yet. They said, well, why not? Rabbi Schwab passed away. He says, but his wife comes every Shabbos. And she's going to look for where her husband used to sit. And she's going to see a new person sitting there. She's going to be in pain. She's going to be upset. Better for her to see the chair empty and remember her husband used to sit there. So he refused to move as long as she was alive.
Wow.
It was only after she passed away
After.
that he moved his chair.
Wow. Respect.
So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. We talk about the students of Rabbi Akiva ben Adam Lechavero. It's a very interesting thing how, Rabbi Schwab, how Rabbi Geli understood what respect was. It's a little bit different than the way we understand respect. Very, very different. Okay, very, very different. Okay, next, there was a question here, before I get into something I'm going to say Shavuos night, there was a question here that it was the end of the school year, and the representative from the parent organization, the PTA, was collecting money for the teachers as a gift for the end of the year, like a tip or whatever it is. So they collected $500. Very nice, for the 8th grade class, $500. So they went to the principal and they says, here's $500, give it to the teachers. Now this class had one Hebrew teacher who taught from, let's say, 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock. And in the afternoon, they had 4 English teachers. A math teacher, a history teacher, a science teacher, and an English teacher. How did they divide the $500?
100.
Does everybody get 100? That means the Rabbi who teaches 6 hours gets the same $100 that the math teacher who teaches 45 minutes gets?
100.
How do you do it? How do you divide the money? That was the question that came up in Halacha.
Wow.
How do you divide the question? How do you divide the...
It's only $500?
It was $500, that's what they collected.
Give them
There's
$50.
5 teachers.
Give them $50 for those teachers, and the rest of them give to the Hebrew teacher. That's the best thing.
That's your way of cutting the pie, huh?
Yeah.
So the Beis Din Pascha, they asked the Shaila, and the halacha was that they should look at it as the Hebrew department and the English department, and take $250 for the Hebrew department and $250 for the English. So there's only one Hebrew teacher, so he got the $250, and the other $250, the other 4 teachers divided up.
Always close.
So each one got like $70 or whatever it is,
$80.
$80 or less.
Yeah,
So that's how it was.
$75.
Okay? It's always this question. I know in the yeshivas there was always when they didn't have enough money to pay the teachers, so they would try to pay the married teachers before the single teachers. Because the married teachers had a family they had to support. The single teachers were living at home. But the single teachers would say, but what do you think I'm working for? To save money, so when I get married, I can support my husband in kollel. So just because I'm not married, I shouldn't get punished and not get paid.
Yes. That's right.
That's true.
Both ways.
And sometimes the women teachers got less than the men teachers, which we know is a big issue today anyway in the marketplace. So these are the things that always come up and are very difficult to understand and decide. Okay, Shavuos night. I'm going to be speaking in 3 different places. One of them is not here. I'm not coming next week, so don't wait up for me on Monday nights. I'm not going to be here, or Saturday night, or Sunday night. Okay, but some things, we will talk a little bit about. Some of the things. Okay, so now Shavuos is like a wedding. It's a wedding between who? Hashem, Bnei Israel, and the Torah. We say God, Torah, Israel. Okay? And that's what the letter Aleph represents, by the way. The Vav represents the Torah, because every column in the Torah, except for 5, begins with the letter Vav. The Yud on top, Yud Kei Vav Kei is Hashem. The Yud on the bottom stands for Yisrael. God, Torah, Israel. What connects God and Hashem and Bnei Israel?
Torah.
The Torah in between. Okay. And, today, every newspaper, and they always talk about it, and speakers are about it, the Shidduch crisis. Have you been hearing about the Shidduch crisis? All these girls can't find boys to marry. So they want boys, who are good, to marry older girls. That means if a boy is 21, 22, you should try to marry a girl who's 23, 24.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
No, what's wrong with that?
Why should we be older?
Sometimes older girls may be better
Better
equipped
than-
for marriage, more mature.
More smarter than
Right.
the
Or
Girls
boy-
anyways mature. Because the
Okay.
bar mitzvah is at
The
12.
problem is the boys are not mature, but we won't get to that. That's another thing.
No, in all the days was like that in Russia. There was women even 3, 4, 5 years older than
In the
men.
olden days, one man had 3 wives, and he didn't
Yeah.
have a Shidduch crisis. Today, we have a Shidduch crisis. Okay? So now, let's figure it out this way. This girl comes, and she comes to a professional shadchan, and she says to the shadchan, you know what a shadchan is?
Yeah, who make it?
Matchmaker. That's it, a
My
matchmaker.
mom's a shah.
Mom's a shadchan. So this girl comes to a professional shadchan like your mom, and says, here she's a shadchan. And says, I'm looking for a shidduch. I'm looking for a boy. Okay. The first question the shadchan is going to ask the girl is what?
Do you work?
No.
You shouldn't.
First, he's going to ask is what kind of a boy you're looking for.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Right? What kind of a boy do you want? What do you want?
A learner,
A
business
learner, a businessman, whatever. So the girl says, I want the Rosh Hashiva. I want a Gadol Hador. Anybody as an example? Yeah, I want someone like Moshe Feinstein.
closer to them.
I want someone like Moshe Feinstein. Got it. So then the shadchan says to the girl, did you prepare a resume?
Yeah.
No, they prepare a resume. So sure. Gives them the resume. Looks at the resume, starts reading. 1 second. It says here you went to public school?
Yes.
She says, yeah, I went to public school for elementary and for high school. Did you go to seminary? No, never went to seminary. What does your father do? My father, he's the priest at the church down the block. But it's Episcopalian, so you're allowed to be married, so you're allowed to have children. It's not like it's the Catholics that they can't have children. My father is married and can have children. So the shadchan says, are you Jewish? So she says, no, not yet. But I want to be Jewish. I'd like to convert to be Jewish. I want to be Jewish. So the shadchan says, okay, I got that. I don't think the Gadol Hador is going to marry you. I don't think that Moshe Feinstein is going to look at you. You understand? You're not going to marry the Rosh Hashiva. I mean, let's bring you down to reality.
There's
Okay.
BT and FFV.
Yeah, Baal Tshuva, BT, from birth, FFB. Yeah, right. Those are the terms, right? Gotta put that in. I didn't put that in over here. BT, FFB,
What means BT?
Baal Tshuva,
But
and FFB means from birth. Anyway, so here's this girl. Her father's the priest down the block. She's not even Jewish yet. She wants to marry the Gadol Hador. So the shadchan says, it's not going to happen.
It's very hard.
But Zipporah says, I want it anyway. And Zipporah did it.
What's it?
Moshe was the Gadol Hador.
Rosh Hashiva.
He was the Rosh Hashiva. Zipporah went to public school.
Yeah.
Zipporah's father
That's right.
Me?
was the local priest.
My mother named Tzipora.
Okay. See that? Zipporah did it anyway.
Yes.
And the hardest part was Zipporah's father. He didn't think Moshe was a candidate. He threw Moshe in jail.
Yeah.
And he didn't give Moshe any food,
She
thinking that the guy would starve to death and the problem would solve itself.
What a father-in-law.
What of that? Now you know the real father. It's a real mother-in-law. That's really what it is. It's not a father, it's a real mother-in-law. Okay? So, how did Moshe survive anyway?
Spoiler.
Zipporah smuggled in food. So when Yisro went to the jail thinking Moshe is dead, let's bury him, and he found Moshe alive, he couldn't figure it out.
What's going on here?
What's going on? So you think that would convince him? No way! He says, you still got to pass the test. Says the test. I survived for 3 months without food. What's the test? Test is, there's a stick I have in my garden that I got from Paro that was supposed to be from Yosef, who probably got it from Yaakov, who probably got it from Adam or Rishon, whatever it is, and no one can pull it out.
If you got it,
If you can pull it out, it means that you're
Chance. You have a chance.
So Moshe goes and the stick like jumps into his hand, you know,
Wow.
and then maybe Zipporah. Okay, so like that's crazy stuff, right? The Shidduch crisis.
Yeah.
What is the Shidduch crisis? Then you fast forward it a little bit, and there's another shadchan. This shadchan is a Beis Lechem, and there's this girl. And this girl says, you know, I want to find a husband. What are you looking for? The Gadol Hador. Really?
Wait, this is what the girl?
Right, the girl. Are you Jewish? No, not yet. I want to be. Where are you from? I'm from Moab. Moab is on the Jewish no-fly list, you know. We don't marry people from Moab. You know, Moab is no, we say Moab. Out of the picture, there's nothing to talk about. But this girl says, no, I want to marry the head of the Sanhedrin. I want to marry the Gadol Hador. That's the man for me. And Boaz. And what happens?
fruit.
She does. And she has a child, and she becomes the Ema Malchus. She becomes the great-grandmother of David HaMelech. She is looked upon as the mother of royalty. Very appropriate. This week, you know, we have the royal
What
wedding.
is loyalty?
The
Yotzat.
Malchut is
Malchut.
royalty. This week is the royal wedding.
David HaMelech, Yotzat. Shabbat.
No, I'm talking about in England between Prince Harry
Oh,
and...
yeah. But David HaMelech, Yotzat.
Yes, no, I mean, your side, of course.
Shabbat.
What am I talking about? The Prince of England, the
Shabbat.
Queen of England, you know.
Baal Shem Tov in the David HaMelech.
Yeah, I don't think the Queen of England is thinking about the Baal Shem Tov. More like the Chamor than the Baal Shem Tov, you know, whatever it is. You know, so it comes out that clearly Zipporah saw something in Moshe, but Moshe had to have seen something in Zipporah. And Rus saw something in Boaz, and Boaz had to see something in Rus. So what was it? What was it that they saw?
Politics.
What was it? So that we have to talk about. It says in Hallel, Hayom Ro'ov Ayonos, the water, the Yam saw, and it ran. Hayardi Nitzavach. So the Gemara says, what did the sea see?
Joseph's bones.
Yosef's bones. Coffin of Yosef. Why did that make all the difference? So we know the Medrash. The Medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the sea, I command you to split. What did the Yam Suf say?
No. Who was created?
I was created to flow, and I'm flowing. This is what Hashem wants from me. I'm doing what Hashem wants. Why should I listen to you, Moshe? Okay? You missed our funny introduction. You have to see it on the tape.
Okay.
Why should I listen to you, Moshe? That was the question. And then the sea said to Moshe, besides, Moshe, what's your problem? He says, well, the Egyptians are coming. The Egyptians are running after us. So the sea said to Moshe, so fight. Defend yourself. It says in the Pasuk, "V'chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael miMitzrayim." They came out chamushim. What does chamushim Rashi say? Armed. They came out with guns and spears and bows and arrows, and they used that to defeat Amalek. If you can fight Amalek, you're 3 million Jews.
Go fight.
What's the problem? Go fight. Go fight. Go protect yourself. You don't need me to split. So what does Moshe say? Moshe says we can't fight the Egyptians. Hakarat hatov. We owe them a debt of gratitude. So he says, what are you talking about? You owe them a debt of gratitude. They tried to kill you. For 86 years, they made you slaves. They took your children. They took your firstborns. They did crazy things. He says, yeah, but before that, for over 100 years,
It was good.
they were very good to us. We lived in their country. We prospered. We had food. We had a city, Goshen. They left us alone. So the Yam says, bring me some proof of this. Bring me some proof of Hakarat HaTov. So Moshe says, look at Yosef. Potiphar's wife grabbed him. Yosef was a man. He could have knocked her down. He could have punched her, gotten his clothes. He didn't have to run out the way he did. Why didn't he do it? Because she was good to him. Before she made the mistakes, she was good to him. Potiphar was good to him. Yosef is proof of Hakaras HaTov. So out of respect to Yosef, we can't fight the Egyptians. When the Yam saw the coffin of Yosef, he says, I accept your proof. And that's why the Yam split. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Zipporah was attracted to Moshe because Moshe saved her from the shepherds. I owe Moshe Hakarat HaTov. I owe him gratitude. Moshe was attracted to Zipporah because Zipporah brought him food. Zipporah saved his life. Rus was attracted to Boaz because Boaz gave her food. Food for her mother-in-law. Boaz was attracted to Rus because when everybody abandoned Naomi, Rus stood by her. Rus protected her. Rus came back with her. Gave up everything she had in Moab. She was a princess. Hakarat HaTov is a fascinating thing. It's the glue that binds. There's a medrash. The medrash says in the beginning of Megillah Rus is a fascinating medrash. The medrash says the book of Rus has no laws of Tuma or Tahara, no laws of Isser or Heter. There is no Shulchan Aruch on the book of Rus. It's a story. So why did we write it? To teach us how great Gemilat Chesed is. To teach us. That means it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. The Torah begins with Chesed, ends with Chesed. That even though Shavuos, and we say Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that means Torah learning is everything. But the truth is, Talmud Torah is only half the picture. The other half is Chesed, is Hakaras HaTov. There's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says that Abaye and Rava came from the house of Eli HaKohen. Now, Eli HaKohen was cursed. His house was cursed that they would die young. They were cursed from the days of Shmuel Hanavi that anybody from the house of Eli would die young. So the Gemara says Rava lived to be 40 years old and he died. Abaye lived to be 60. But they were from the same family. So how come one lived 20 years older than the other? So the Gemara says Rava, who learned Torah day and night, lived to be 40. But Abaye, who did Torah plus Gemilas Chesed, got an extra 20 years of life. So even though we say the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, it's not a substitute for Chesed. And on the night when we stay up all night to learn, to be Makabel Torah, we read a story that has nothing to do with Torah. The story of Rus is all about Chesed. And we learn all the rules of marriage. Har Sinai, the fire, the flowers, the walking. I don't think they called him down. They didn't say, and here comes Moshe, you know, and his family coming down. They didn't do the Bukharian way. I don't know why not, but they just didn't do that.
Maybe they didn't have a microphone.
They didn't have the microphone. They didn't have this guy.
It wasn't Bukharian.
Maybe, I don't know.
No,
Maybe it was.
Bukharian, but it was-
They like to
was
think.
surprised, but I'm
They like to think he was Bukharian. But we see the importance of chesed. Now, in the Ami magazine, you ever heard this? There's this magazine, Ami magazine. So Rabbi Gold says a story, very interesting story. He says there was a couple that were married for many, many years, did not have children. So they decided they were going to adopt. Okay. So they had to go for this course on adoption. So there's this lady, there's a bunch of couples in the room, and everybody has a piece of paper in front of them. And the lady says to the guys in the room, do me a favor, on the piece of paper, write some of the things you enjoy. Okay. So the guy takes out his pen. He was learning in Kolo. I enjoy learning Torah. And he would volunteer for Hatzolah and Tomchei Shabbos. I enjoy doing chesed. And he had a very nice voice. So I enjoy davening for the Almud, being a chazan. I like singing. Okay? So he wrote on a piece of paper. Then the lady said, okay, if you get a child, you adopt a child needs time. So you won't have time to do all the things you enjoy. You have to sacrifice for the child. Write on the piece of paper what you would give up from the things you enjoy. Okay, I got to give up something to have this child. Thanks. I'll give up the singing. Okay, no singing. I'll give up being the chazan. My voice. I won't take voice lessons. Okay, good. I'm fine. Then she says, but the child needs a lot of attention. You're going to have to give up something else. Go back to your list and tell me what else you're going to give up. And he goes, looks through his list. He had two things left on his list. Learning Torah and doing chesed. So he says to her, I can't give up any of these things. That means a Jewish home is about learning Torah and doing chesed. That's a Jewish home. You're asking me to destroy the home and destroy the education of the child I'm trying to bring into this world and trying to raise. I can't do it. She said, well, you have to give something up. He says, well, I won't. So she writes down, she says, well, you seem to have an anger problem. I think you need anger management, So he says, I'm out of here. He takes his wife and says, let's get out of here. This is crazy. So now he loses his name off. His name is off the list. He's earmarked, needs anger management, whatever it is. And he's furious. He said, what am I supposed to give up? You want me to give up what? Torah? You want me to give up chesed? That's what makes me a Jew. Tell me I should take off my yarmulke. I should be a goy. I'm not a goy.
Who's asking this question?
There was a workshop on adopting children to the parents who were looking to adopt children, trying to prepare them to weed out who are good parents, who are not, who will be making the list. Okay? So, he's furious. Gets home, there's a message from her doctor, from her OBGYN. Finds out that she's pregnant, expecting twins. So he said, and he wrote this down in the magazine, he says he had a boy and a girl. The boy represented Torah, and the girl generally represents chesed. He says, because I walked out of that meeting, Hashem says, you're right. You can't give up Torah and chesed. He had two children. He had a boy and a girl. What?
Here's a gift for you.
There's a gift for you. A boy and a girl, Torah and chesed. So I found that to be fascinating, as to, what happens with, in this world. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. It's a test. These things are a test. It's not so simple. So I go through Shavuos night. I'm going to go through a little bit of the things we spoke about over here over the last year, and some of the stories of what Hakoras HaTov means. Hakoras HaTov, acknowledging that someone did for you something that's good. When we daven, we say that Hashem is Gomel Chesed. Gomel Chesed means Hashem does good now. Right? Gomel Chesed. It doesn't say Gomal Chesed, Hashem did for me. What does that mean? That even though Hashem did for me a favor 10 years ago, but that favor 10 years ago helped me back then, but I benefit from it every single day. Because if Hashem does you a favor, someone did you a favor 10 years ago, and because of that favor, things came into place and you are where you are today because of that. So that favor wasn't 10 years ago. That favor was 10 years ago, and 9 years ago, and 8 years ago, and this today, and tomorrow. It is a constant thing. A person who enjoys or who has benefit is a gomel chesed. Such a person is constantly gaining from the kindness that Hashem has. And therefore, it's the whole thing of how to do and what to do and everything else that is so very important. So I go through all the stories, I talk about Rav Geli, but I want to tell you this story. I'm going to end with this story. It's already 9:25, I have people coming. I'm going to end with this story. I once told you this story a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was. But I told you this story, that there was a woman who was a Holocaust survivor. And her husband died in the Holocaust. And she had one son. And she came across in 1946, 1947. And her son maybe was 5 years old or 6 years old. I mean, he was born right before the Holocaust. So they were, I guess, living in Williamsburg or on the east side of New York. And she was poor as poor could be. I mean, lunch, when she packed lunch for her son, it was a slice of bread. Some days it was just a slice of bread. Some days it was a slice of bread with a little bit of butter on it, but or schmaltz, fat. There was really nothing on it. One day, she didn't even have that. She didn't even have a piece of bread. So she wrote a note, and she put it in the lunch bag that he had. I'm sorry that I don't have any lunch to give you, but I'm hoping to have a delicious supper for when you come home. Okay, he's in yeshiva, it's lunchtime, he opens up his lunch bag, he's hungry, and of course there's nothing in there. And he starts crying to himself, he's 7 years old, 8 years old, he's crying, he's hungry. So he walks out of the yeshiva, and he starts walking up and down the street looking for any house with a mezuzah. And he sees a house with a mezuzah, and he knocks on the door, and a little girl answers, like a 5-year-old girl, and he says to the little girl, could I get a glass of water? I'm thirsty. And the girl looks at him, and I guess his stomach started growling or whatever it was. She says, no problem. And she goes and she comes back from the kitchen with 4 pieces of cake and a glass of milk. And he devoured that, those 4 pieces of cake and a glass of milk. And it was the best lunch he ever had. The day his mother didn't give him lunch, he had the best lunch that he did ever had. But it made such an impact on him, so he said to himself, when I get older, I'm not gonna be poor like this. I'm gonna be successful. And he went back and he studied as hard as he could, and he finished high school, and he went to college, and he went to medical school, and he became a cardiac thoracic surgeon. Cardiac means heart. And he was the head of the department. Let's say the head of the department at NYU or Cornell or one of the big hospitals. And he was the guy that all the hard cases, he led the unit, and all the hard cases came to him. Some 30, 40 years later, an ambulance comes rushing up, they bring in a patient, and this patient is in cardiac arrest, and his unit jumps in, and the doctors say, no, there's nothing we can do, but he's the head of the department. She codes on the table, she goes into cardiac arrest 3 times to try to bring her back with the paddles and everything else. Anyway, his unit jumps in, and they revive her. And they bring her back to life, and now she's in the ICU. So the whole family is there, of course, around this lady, and he comes in, he's the head of the unit, and he saved her life. I mean, he just saved her life. And he starts schmoozing and talking to them. Where are you from? Oh, we grew up here, we grew up there, we were on the Lower East Side. He finds out that that girl, now she's a woman, was the same girl that gave him the cake. Anyway, the hospital bill for that bill was $180,000. Okay, they didn't have insurance. So they go down to financial aid, they're trying to negotiate with financial aid, a payment plan. Anyway, the lady's going through everything and giving them papers to sign, and they're gonna try this. And all of a sudden, she looks and she stops and she says, there seems to be some mistake over here. And they said, what's the problem? She says, the bill is paid.
Paid.
So they said, well, it's impossible, we didn't pay the bill. They says, well, there's a note. And the note says, it's a small price to pay for 4 pieces of cake and a glass of milk.
Wow.
That's Hakara Satel. Okay? This girl did something to an 8-year-old boy that changed his life. It's 35 years later, 40 years later. He's a man. How does he even remember? That's Hakara Satel. That's the quality of which. That's what Zipporah saw in Moshe. That's what Boaz saw in Rus. That's Shavuos. We stay up all night and we learn Torah and everything else. That's great. That's wonderful. But that's not you. You've got to be that doctor who makes a difference in everybody's life and never forgets 4 slices of cake and a glass of milk. Anyway, that's my talk for Shavuos night. Acceptable?
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody.
It's like-
Samir.